It all begins in a luxurious VIP birthing suite, where a woman is about to go into labor, casually flipping through a magazine. But her patience quickly wears thin, and she snaps at the nurses, demanding they get the baby out of her already, still calmly reading her magazine. Moments later, the cry of a newborn echoes through the room, and a staff member rushes in to congratulate the grandfather. Soon the entire room joins in, offering their well wishes to Miss Liu, who graciously thanks everyone for their kindness. He then turns to a maid and asks about Shiquan's whereabouts. She informs him that the young master had some affairs to handle on Earth. This enrages the grandfather, who curses his son's absence and calls him a worthless slacker. Suddenly, a strange scream erupts from within the delivery room, startling everyone outside. Concerned, Liu stands up and demands to know what is going on inside. Inside the room, the mother is frozen in shock as a dazzling light radiates in front of her. When the grandfather and his entourage step inside, they stop dead in their tracks. The intense glow is coming from the newborn, who is cloaked in yellow lightning and appears to be enjoying it immensely. Internally, the baby muses that nobody would ever expect a former commoner to be reborn into such a noble household and even awaken a divine sense. A translucent system screen materializes, announcing that the lightning-type divine sense has been activated at S-level strength. The grandfather is left speechless. His grandson had just been born yet already awakened a power he himself had never achieved. His cane falls from his hands as he exclaims in awe at the unparalleled, innate divine sense the child possesses. Cradling the baby in his arms, he declares with excitement that the Liu clan has finally birthed a once-in-a-generation prodigy. But deep within, the child has his own thoughts. He intends to use this opportunity to seize everything from the Liu clan and ensure his father never reincarnates again. Some maids whisper in astonishment, noting how the baby is already smiling and didn't even cry, which is a clear omen of noble destiny. The clan elder solemnly promises to raise this child with the full strength and resources of the family. This newborn, our protagonist, reflects that it is hard to believe it has already been 6 months since he was killed by that traitor. Just 1 month after being reborn, his mother had been drinking a special tonic gifted by a maid. The moment she sipped it, a radiant golden light enveloped her entire body. Inside the womb, he gained the ability of accelerated growth and astonishingly reached D level. Even as a developing embryo, he recalls how commoners could never compare to the strength of noble clans, but he had already reached heights others risk their lives to attain. Still, he wonders what this power truly is, since there is no mention of accelerated growth in any record. 2 months into the pregnancy, he encountered a crisis. He was almost overtaken by the mother's original embryo, but instead, he was rewarded. Utilizing his rapid growth ability, he consumed the original embryo and inherited its innate lightning-type divine sense. He is overjoyed, since lightning is one of the rarest and most coveted elemental affinities. From that moment on, he vowed to absorb all the best resources the clan could offer to increase his strength. 3 months later, his lightning divine sense had already advanced to the intermediate level. We then shift to the mother's bedroom. High heels and lingerie are scattered across the floor. On the bed, a pair of legs are intertwined. She is with another man, a blonde-haired lover, while her unborn son rests in her womb. The man asks if she is worried, but she casually replies that her marriage is nothing more than a political deal. The fetus listens closely as the man questions whether he is even the child's father, while the woman just urges him to continue. The MC sighs internally, annoyed that all this activity is disrupting his energy absorption. In frustration, he releases a surge of energy, causing the woman to groan in discomfort, complaining it burned her from the inside. At 6 months, his power has reached peak D level, and he now understands his mother's special constitution. Elsewhere, a man watches silently. He gazes at the woman's stomach and mutters, wondering when the brat will finally be born. Inside the womb, the MC opens his eyes and glares at his so-called father, his gaze burning with hatred. Through his divine vision, he sees the man's face and inwardly calls him a filthy mutt. A flashback begins, showing the MC in his previous life, being warned of deadly beasts. One of his comrades, wounded and desperate, urges brother Liu to escape, but instead of helping, Liu simply watches as his friend is torn apart by a horrifying monster. The traitor grins wickedly and orders his men to feed the beast to create a spirit core. He stands there, watching gleefully as the young man faces certain death. Suddenly, a massive spike flies toward Liu, and the traitor's former companion ruthlessly impales him with a massive branch. The protagonist stares down at his chest in disbelief, betrayed and bleeding. The villain laughs maniacally, ridiculing him for overestimating his own abilities. As Liu is flung into the distance, he yells that he was used as bait to feed the monsters. As his life fades, his only concern is for his little sisters. He remembers promising them he would return soon. We see him departing for his mission, sword in hand, as the door shuts behind him. The 3 girls remain waiting anxiously for their brother's return. One of them looks up at the moon through the window, wondering when he will come back. Back in the present, rage consumes the unborn child. He swears to take revenge on the man who tore him from his sisters. He channels his power and prepares to punch the man from inside the womb. Incredibly, the punch lands square on the man's face, sending him flying. The mother yelps, surprised by the sudden force from within her belly. The father crashes to the floor, writhing in pain, completely confused about what just hit him. The woman grumbles that the brat is already causing trouble before even being born. The grandfather immediately orders a nurse to check what is going on. The nurse nervously reports that the young master's talent is far beyond normal and his development is happening at an accelerated rate. She adds, startled, that labor is starting and the baby is about to be born. The protagonist reflects that in his past life, his limit was peak D level and now he is about to surpass it entirely. His mother, in agony, screams for the best delivery team to be called at once. When the baby turned 1 month old, the Liu family hosted an extravagant banquet in celebration. Numerous prominent families from the southern region of Shao arrived, each bringing gifts to honor the newborn. During the event, the grandfather sat watching a violin performance, accompanied by a maid. At the same time, the infant protagonist, just a month old, rested peacefully in the arms of another maid. One of the attendees congratulated Master Leo on the arrival of his grandson, though the elder appeared distracted and deep in thought. Another guest offered congratulations to the child's father, while the baby fixated his gaze on a man, the very one responsible for his downfall in a previous life. Rage bubbled within him at the sight of the enemy who tore him away from his beloved sisters, and he silently vowed vengeance on the spot. In his mind, flashes of the past returned, his younger sisters beaming with excitement over a small birthday cake. Back then, he was on a phone call with Brother Chen, who was frustrated over his tardiness for an urgent mission. The young man apologized, while the traitor, deep down, believed he had only hired him due to rumors about his financial struggles. The man offered him advice to be smarter, and the young man sincerely thanked him for the opportunity. His little sisters waited eagerly to share the small piece of cake that sat on the table. Before leaving, the older brother hugged one of them, promising he had work to do, but would return soon. He then retrieved his weapon from a hidden bag and prepared to set out. As the door shut behind him, the 3 young girls were left alone, nervously awaiting his return. They sat by the window, gazing at the moon, hoping their brother would come home safely. Far away, a man approached a glowing portal deep within a shadowy forest. The same man, seen earlier congratulating young Master G at the celebration, now smoked a cigarette near the portal. Young Master G was clearly the one in charge of this dangerous mission. With his men gathered around him, he inquired about the status of the operation. The man informed him that their team had been inside for some time, and that the beasts should have fed well by now. Young Master G praised Old Chen, stating that he was well trained and always delivered results. He then turned to a woman in the group and commented that their visit was primarily for her, but she scoffed, dismissing him as another bottom feeder from the G family attempting to climb up the ranks. With that, the group of traitors made their way toward the portal, preparing to leave the forsaken area. Meanwhile, one of the hero's allies warned him of a nearby formidable beast. The young master was shocked that anyone had survived, especially since the creatures were needed as ingredients for medicine. Old Chen expressed his confusion, noting that the ones inside were only D-rank fighters. Suddenly, a deafening noise pulled everyone's attention in the same direction. The group's leader scanned the area with a stern expression. Moments later, they spotted one of the beasts with a fresh wound on its leg. The creature locked eyes with the young man, our hero, standing alone amidst the barren land. Though battered and weary, he held his ground, determined for one last stand. Just then, a traitor cautiously stepped forward. Young Master G demanded to know what had harmed his beast and how it had managed to get close. Seeing the lone survivor, young Master G was taken aback and called out, "I Chen." The young man turned and shouted for Brother Chen, confused and unsure of what was unfolding. One of Ye Chen's companions asked if he had brought backup, while the rest of the group began to retreat. Back in the present, the baby, his memories clear, renewed his vow to avenge the deep-seated grudge. He stretched out his little arms and made baby sounds toward the traitor, who watched him closely. The man stammered, completely at a loss as to what the infant wanted. The boy's father chuckled, saying his son simply wished to be held, and that this was the highest honor of the man's life. With that, he lifts the baby into his arms and thanks him for the reward, while the little one lets out a fake laugh. The moment the man holds him, the baby begins to emit a faint yellow energy. Instantly, he unleashes his lightning-type ability, sending a vicious jolt straight into his enemy. The traitor howls in agony as the electric current surges through his entire body. Unable to withstand the shock, he accidentally drops the baby, who crashes hard onto the mansion floor. The women at the gathering gasp in alarm and turn toward the source of the noise. Even the musicians stop playing, stunned by the chaos unfolding before them. The boy's grandfather observes everything with a grim expression. Meanwhile, the child's parents are frozen in shock at what just happened. Lying on the floor, the tiny protagonist continues his act, and the old man suddenly realizes he has made a critical mistake. The baby starts wailing loudly to keep up the performance and deceive everyone everyone around. Panicking, the traitor begins to sweat profusely, fearful of the consequences. Enraged, the grandfather yells at him for daring to drop the Liu family's most precious child. The man throws himself to the ground in fear, insisting it wasn't his fault, and claiming the young master acted on his own. But the baby's father doesn't buy a word and launches a vicious kick at him, calling him a filthy dog. The force of the blow sends the man flying across the mansion floor. Crawling back, he bows repeatedly, pleading for forgiveness. He insists he would never harm the child and offers up his treasures in hopes of healing the boy. The baby's father, clearly amused by the groveling, smirks coldly. Without hesitation, the master orders the guards to drag the traitor outside and give him a proper beating. The man thanks them for the punishment as a maid gently picks up the baby. In her arms, the little one grins slyly, clearly pleased with how things turned out. With a bruised forehead, the traitor sits confused, completely lost on what just happened. The baby continues to cry loudly, perfectly maintaining his innocent disguise in front of everyone. The old traitor is stunned yet again at the sudden switch back to crying. The grandfather tells the maid to take the young master inside and check for any injuries from the fall. He then turns to his son and scolds him, saying their prestigious family has no need for a worthless fool like that. With an irritated snort, the family head storms off, furious over the entire incident. The boy's father, stung by the rebuke, clenches a glass in his hand so tightly it shatters into pieces. Then, without warning, he lashes out and kicks the traitor square in the face. He follows it with another blow, ordering the man to be thrown out and fed to the house dogs. The guards drag the man away as he begs for mercy, but no one spares him any sympathy. The host turns back to the guests and tells them to resume the celebration. The family doctor examines the infant and remarks that he possesses an extraordinary physique and is in perfect health. The grandfather bursts into laughter, thrilled that his grandson is unharmed and in excellent condition. Yet for the boy, the most urgent matter now is to reunite with the three sisters he had left behind. He must grow up fast enough to pursue that mysterious woman's essence. Soon after, the baby starts crying again, this time for milk. At once, the elder commands that his daughter-in-law be summoned to nurse the child and give him more spiritual medicine. The boy's mother complains that she had just fed him and is already completely drained, but the family head brushes off her exhaustion, telling her to endure it for the clan's future and her son's well-being. Reluctantly, the woman removes her coat and prepares to nurse him again. The little one opens his mouth wide and starts wailing in anticipation. His mother lifts him and gazes into his eyes, which are red from crying. As she begins breastfeeding, she mutters that the little rascal is sucking too hard. Seeing her growing weaker, the grandfather orders someone to bring her tonic soup to restore her strength. Shortly after, we see the baby bathing with his mother in a hot spring. She sighs and complains that he has been sucking for so long it is as if she owed him a debt from a past life. 3 months later, the baby is already crawling all over the house and his power has reached sea level. In his previous life, it had taken him a whole year to progress from elementary D level to intermediate. Back then, he had gone through countless dangerous missions inside portals and suffered numerous injuries. But now he has managed to rise from elementary C to intermediate in just 3 months simply by drinking milk. During a family dinner, the tiny protagonist crawls toward the main table. Annoyed, the grandfather scolds the staff, asking who let the young master crawl around unsupervised. A maid hurriedly apologizes, explaining that the boy moves so quickly she cannot keep up. The baby's father chuckles and says his son must be after more milk, while the mother, clearly worn out, complains that the baby has been glued to her chest for the past 3 months and she desperately needs a break. Meanwhile, the baby thinks to himself that he has no time to waste and must continue getting stronger. Suddenly, to everyone's shock, the baby stands up on his own for the first time. The grandfather and butler are both left speechless by the stunning sight. The little boy starts walking toward his mother, who stares at him stunned. He leaps into her arms and she screams, telling him to let her eat in peace. The maid, wide-eyed, exclaims that the young master is walking on his own. The butler notes that with such a rare celestial physique, his growth is nothing short of remarkable. The grandfather, proud and impressed, watches his grandson and says it is now time, according to family tradition, to choose a personal servant for the boy. Elsewhere, in a dimly lit area, an elder inquires about the status of the selection. A guard responds that only 2 candidates remain. Cradled in his mother's arms, the boy is brought to a makeshift arena for the final selection test. He watches intently until he suddenly spots a familiar face among the contestants and is taken aback. Inside a holding cell, a white-haired girl stands in a defensive position, clearly frightened. Opposite her, a blonde girl rushes in, yelling as she launches an attack to defeat her opponent. The baby, stunned to see someone he recognizes, begins to radiate a brilliant light. In the next instant, he unleashes his lightning-type power, zapping one of the girls mid-fight. The blondie girl is sent flying and crashes to the ground, instantly knocked out. Seizing the opportunity, the white-haired girl dashes to the bread on the floor. Without hesitation, she grabs it and devours it hungrily right there in the cell. The mother's hair stands on end from the electric shock. The baby, now panicking, hopes no one noticed anything unusual. The grandfather bursts into laughter, saying that his grandson clearly has more fighting spirit than even his own father did. The little one thinks being a baby has its perks because adults always find ways to excuse his actions. The elder announces that the white-haired girl will become the boy's servant and instructs the staff to clean her up and teach her proper etiquette. Unbothered by anything around her, the girl continues tearing into the bread as if nothing else matters. The baby lying in the crib looks cheerful and happily calls out to his new servant with a bright smile. At the same time, the butler informs her that she is now a death servant tasked with protecting the young master. The white-haired girl gives a silent nod, accepting her new role without question. He further tells her to follow the master and train in martial arts while he rests. With her duty set, the little maid heads toward the baby's room to begin her assignment. As she enters, the baby excitedly points to himself with a huge grin, clearly thrilled to meet her. But her mood shifts in an instant. She pulls out a knife and her expression darkens with hatred and vengeance. The baby freezes in fear and tries to speak, but his vocal cords won't allow him to form words. She declares that she's going to eliminate him to avenge her older brother's death right then and there. With her blade raised, she prepares to strike the helpless infant lying in his crib. Moving swiftly, she lunges at the baby with deadly intent, but the baby reacts with astonishing reflexes, dodging the attack and leaping out of the crib. He lands on the floor, leaving behind an afterimage of energy, which completely stuns the girl. In the blink of an eye, the boy reappears right beside her, leaving her speechless and wide-eyed in disbelief. Suddenly, a green aura begins to form around the girl as she prepares to fight. The protagonist is stunned to see that she has a wind-type divine sense. Without hesitation, she launches her wind power, but the baby counters it with his lightning ability. Their opposing elements collide, flooding the room with brilliant, vibrant energy. The boy quickly realizes that using both powers at once is too much for his infant body. An idea sparks in his mind to end the fight. He directs a low-powered thunder divine sense toward her. A small bolt of lightning strikes the girl, paralyzing her briefly and causing her to collapse to the floor, unable to move properly. The little one breathes a sigh of relief, though. He's clearly worn out from the effort. As the girl lies stunned, she can still feel the current pulsing through her limbs. Cautiously, the baby approaches and touches the sharp blade. He then cuts his finger on purpose, and a drop of blood forms on the tip. With that, he writes a message on the floor using his own blood. He feels proud of himself for thinking of such a smart way to communicate. As she reads the blood-written message, the girl finally understands. The baby opens his arms, asking for a hug, but instead of hugging him, she swings at him again, and he suddenly remembers that she can't read yet. He dodges quickly and becomes worried. If anyone sees her attacking him, she will be in serious trouble. Elsewhere in the mansion, a man, once called a traitor, walks through the hallway holding a wooden box. In a flashback, the boy's father says the man is only alive because he is still useful. Lying on the ground, the man had thanked the young master for sparing his life and promised to work harder. The master added that the grandfather was furious and told him to find a way to please the baby. He recalls selling everything he owned to purchase a rare item at auction. Suddenly, he hears the voice of the young master and wonders what is happening in the room. He opens the door and steps inside, calling for the heir of the Liu family. Inside, he sees a wild sight: the baby and the maid chasing each other around. Seeing his chance, the baby shoots the man a dark look, already putting a plan together. The man stands confused, unable to understand the situation. The boy grabs the girl's hand and redirects the knife. He sends a small lightning shock to her forehead, knocking her out, while catching the blade midair and completing his setup perfectly. Without hesitation, the baby stabs himself in the shoulder, and the blade is covered in blood. The man screams in shock, unable to believe what he's seeing. Then the baby tosses the bloody knife at him. The man catches it instinctively and stands frozen in fear. In his panic, he drops the wooden box. Meanwhile, the baby takes a deep breath, preparing for his grand performance. Moments later, he starts crying loudly while lying over the unconscious girl on the rug. The man holding the bloody knife stands frozen and completely distraught at the terrifying scene in front of him. Hearing the commotion, the grandfather and others rush over to see what's going on. The elder and his son observe the situation with stern faces. The baby continues to cry and leans on the servant girl, making it seem like he was protecting her. Enraged, the grandfather points at the man and accuses him of attempting to harm his grandson. The accused throws the knife to the ground and tries to explain himself, insisting it wasn't his fault. However, the boy's father doesn't buy it and punches him for daring to lay a hand on his son. In desperation, the man claims the girl attacked the baby first and he was only defending himself. Still crying, the little one keeps up the act while the accused yells in panic, his nose bleeding. He pleads with the elder, swearing he's telling the truth, but no one seems convinced. The father delivers another blow, demanding to know where the gift is. Frantically, the man starts searching for the gift he had dropped amid the chaos. The grandfather praises the young girl for safeguarding his grandson and instructs the staff to let her rest. The elder places a hand on the builder, causing him to stiffen. He glares at the boy, his crimson eyes burning with fury, and remarks that while he taught his son to raise dogs, he nearly cost them the Liu family's future. The group leaves the room, leaving the accused kneeling in fear, drenched in cold sweat. Terror grips him as he realizes the consequences of the situation. Suddenly, the baby's father turns around and gives him a hateful glare before kicking him hard. He growls that he gave him a chance, yet he still dared to harm his child. As the man tries to speak again, the master coldly commands that he be dragged out and thrown to the dogs. Seeing that his plan worked, the baby finally breathes a sigh of relief. Despite the wound on his shoulder, he looks over at the unconscious girl with concern. At that moment, the butler arrives and says they must treat the servant immediately. The baby panics, remembering the message he had written on the floor beneath her. Quickly, he lies down on top of her and shakes his head, trying to stop the man from moving her. The staff member gently lifts the young master off her, then the butler places him back in his crib. The baby looks visibly anxious. As the man reaches for the girl again, the boy considers zapping him with a bit of electricity to stop him. Then an idea hits him, and he glances toward the maid with a new plan forming in his head. The staff lifts the unconscious girl, revealing a pool of blood left behind on the floor. The little one is stunned to see that the girl is seriously injured. The blood-soaked fabric shocks even the butler. The baby is left confused, unable to understand how she ended up hurt. The man carries her outside and orders the young master's room to be cleaned. Left alone in the crib, the baby sighs in relief, but still wonders what's really going on. He brushes it off for now, focusing on the next step of his plan. He climbs out of the crib, determined to keep things moving. Meanwhile, in a massage room, special oil is being prepared for the boy's mother. One of the maids gives her a relaxing back massage, and she enjoys a rare moment of calm. But her peace is short-lived when the baby suddenly cries out for milk, startling her. He crawls up to her, and she grumbles about how he's back again with his endless hunger. As he starts feeding, she complains, asking when he'll stop clinging to her. But the boy knows he needs to grow faster so he can speak and finally explain everything to his servant. A week passes quickly in the Grand Liu family estate, and time seems to fly. Before anyone realizes, our main character now appears to be around 3 years old and has finally learned how to speak properly. The little white-haired servant girl is still giving him serious side-eye. She is still convinced that he is responsible for everything that happened involving her older brother. Then the boy suddenly turns to Yi and reveals something huge. He tells her that he is actually her brother. The girl is completely shocked. She freezes and her eyes shift into a dark red shade. He asks if the cake her brother gave her was tasty. That simple question sends her straight into a flood of memories, and her emotions begin to swell. In her mind, she recalls her brother calling her and her other sisters to eat cake. The 3 young girls were thrilled when they saw a birthday cake in front of them. Then she recalls him getting a phone call. He was ordered to join his team on a mission. One of the sisters tried to sneak a bite, but another stopped her and said they should wait for their brother. That evening, the 3 little girls sat by the window and stared at the moon, patiently waiting for him to return. At that moment, her thoughts mix with the present, and she sees his old face appear in the full moon like a vision. The reflection blends into the baby face of the boy standing before her. He looks at her with a gentle smile, and tears fill his eyes. Once she realizes the truth, she breaks down and cannot hold back anymore. She collapses to the floor, crying loudly and uncontrollably. He quickly covers her mouth and tries to quiet her so no one discovers their secret. Using his tiny hand, he muffles her sobs to keep them hidden. A moment later, she throws herself into his arms, hugging him with all her strength, filled with relief and joy. Through her tears, the little girl asks if he is really her beloved brother. The hug is so tight that he complains he cannot breathe in his small child body. She finally releases him, and he catches his breath, slightly dizzy. After recovering, he becomes serious and looks at her, needing answers. She watches him closely while tears still fall down her cheeks. He takes her hand and asks how she ended up here and what happened to their other sisters. Overwhelmed by the questions, she asks him to slow down. Eventually, they calm down and prepare to talk. She begins explaining that the day he left for his mission, he never returned. In a flashback, the 3 sisters are seen staring at the cake he brought, waiting for him. One of the girls wonders aloud why he is taking so long. The youngest one even asks if he abandoned them since he had never been gone so long before. E decides to go look for him. She reaches the mission headquarters and learns he went missing. There she sees another hunter's wife yelling at the traitor about her missing husband. The man loses patience and harshly pushes her aside, calling her crazy. Another hunter steps in and accuses the man of entering the portal with young Master Lu and the others. In that moment, the servant girl realizes this man is behind it all. He stands there annoyed, casually smoking, showing no guilt. He then uses his fire abilities and prepares to strike. A fireball shoots toward the accusing hunter, who is frozen in fear. The fireball hits him directly and flames engulf his body. He falls to the ground while the others just stand by and watch. The traitor then warns everyone that spreading rumors about the young master is dangerous since it was a high-risk mission. The boy says the traitor got what he deserved for the betrayal and then asks about the other girls. When he brings up the others, the girl's expression shifts and deep worry fills her face. She begins crying again, leaving her brother completely confused. Alarmed by her reaction, he quickly asks what happened to them. If you're excited for the next part, leave a comment and I'll do my best to bring it to you as soon as possible.